Buffalo Sabres are proud to select from Winnipeg in the Western Hockey League, Zach Benson.
Welcome into Sabres Live at the Draft in Nashville, presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos, and the only player that Matt Savoie did not outscore on the Winnipeg ice this year was the latest pick in the first round by Kevin Adams and the Buffalo Sabres. His name is Zach Benson, and he, I think, although we'll know from Kris Baker here as we bring him in from the studio very quickly, Marty, I think the general manager is going to share some very similar praise about the attributes of this young player.
Well, absolutely. I think Zach Benson was listed in the top 10 of many mock draft and experts, lists. So you look at some of those lists, Adam 6th, 7th, 5th. So, I mean, when you look at the way the draft was falling, and the Sabres looked as though they were having conversation with some general managers, and all of a sudden you realize this guy's available at 13.
Yeah.
It was almost too good to pass on, right? So they saw him playing a lot, obviously playing with Matt Savoie in Winnipeg, so they know about him, his character, his playmaking ability, everything that he can bring to the Sabres, and the type of person and player he is. So that is the history right there. But obviously, Bakes, you know more about the players, so give us your insight on Zach Benson and his skill set and what he brings to the Sabres.
Yeah, so the skill set is incredible. I mean, you can talk, there's two sides of this multi-dimensional player that you really want to focus on. Number one, the offense, he's incredibly gifted, okay? The hockey IQ, the ability to get to the interior, he's relentless with the puck and without the puck. More importantly, with this player, again, he's not the biggest guy, but we always talk about the cliches in the sport of hockey. It's not how big you are, it's how big you play. Zach Benson plays bigger than his body suggested he is. Again, just a shade under 5'10", 170 pounds. But this is a guy, he's got just an incredible work ethic. That's what really stands out when you watch Zach Benson play. I saw a lot of the Winnipeg ice this year. And as good as Matthew Savoie was, especially in the second half of the season, there were many, many games where Zach Benson was the best player on the ice, with and without the puck for the Winnipeg Ice on a very loaded team. So when you look again, just very highly skilled, he's very cerebral. I love his desire to he's unafraid, he's excellent in pursuit, but it's all about his total game. He's a true 200-foot player. So when you look at a guy like that, when the Sabres talk about compete, he checks that box in a big-time way. Mm-hmm. They talk about skill and hockey IQ. He checks that box in a major, major way. So I think they were very thrilled. And you talk about the intelligence that they had by talking to Savoie, James Patrick. I'm sure anyone connected to this player gave a glowing recommendation, and that gave the Sabres a lot of confidence to walk up there and make this pick.
Well, it's fascinating that you do go to the same place in consecutive years and get players of very comparable size and obviously statistics. But if I'm going to put you on the spot here, which player in consecutive years, would you project as having the higher upside at the next level? I mean, this could be quite the internal competition between two junior teammates who are now trying to make it to the NHL.
They have a lot of similarities in their game. They both play the game very hard. Like we saw Matthew Savoie go and enter the corners with a lot of gusto and use his smaller body to knock guys off pucks. Zach Benson, to me, I've seen him do it for many years now. Benson is legitimately a top-of-the-lineup player, like for sure. So you want to talk about higher upside? Boy, it's going to be a great internal battle. Right now, I think that Benson might have that internal drive that may be on a more consistent basis. Listen, if he can push Savoie to become a better player, great. But, I mean, I see an incredible home run pick here with Zach Benson. I mean, the compete level is off the charts, guys. I mean, fans in Buffalo are going to fall in love with this player when they see him.
Bakes, you talk about compete. Last year we talked about Matt Savoie as a big motor. Like, his first 5 strides and his first 20 seconds of his shift are fast all over the ice. I'm looking at Zach Benson here, and everything I would read on him, everything I watched him is the same thing, big motor.
Yeah.
Like, is that a quality that not a lot of prospects have? Because it is always singled out when a player has a big motor and can really go right away in all aspects of the game.
He's so focused on the puck. When he doesn't have it, he wants it, and that shows in the burst that he has. Now, the one thing that Savoie has that Benson really doesn't have is maybe that elite top-end gear. Okay, but Benson still plays fast. that's the difference in the two players. Really, the biggest difference is that Savoie's top-end gear is very, very, very fast. Benson gets out of the blocks quick, but maybe I think he has some more work and power to generate to get to a greater top-end speed as he goes. He's still very young, right? He just turned 18 in May, so he's got some runway to get a little quicker at a top-end gear. But no, I mean, it's nonstop go, go, go when he's on the ice. He doesn't take a shift off. Stick on stick, stick on puck. He uses his body, and I think that's just the character that he has, the desire to win puck battles. He's not the biggest guy, but he goes inside. He's fearless. So I think that a lot of what the Sabres talked about and what that character of what they want a Buffalo Sabre to be, they got it right here with Zach Benson. And by the way, we spent so much time talking about the motor, the relentless nature, the dogger work ethic. His skill level is just as high as the lauds that were given him for his work ethic. I mean, high skill, great puck skills, great hands, very soft touch around the net. I mean, look at his statistics. They speak for himself. But it's the hard work that gets him there, but he just knows what to do around the net when he gets the puck also. Incredible talent level.
When you were giving us your baker's dozen, you reportedly were unwell. That your stomach was churning and you were not at ease with probably more so projecting how the dominoes were going to fall and then what Buffalo might almost feel forced is the wrong word, but like how it falls into their position. How surprised are you that Benson was in fact available at 13?
I'm a little surprised because when I put him at 12 in that mock draft, I was uncomfortable there because of the skill level, because of the details that he has, because of the resume. It's not just one year that Zach Benson's done this. He's been a major scorer at every level that he's played at. Mm-hmm. He came in last year and was a huge point producer for Winnipeg in his draft minus 1 year. So there was a discomfort for me putting him at 12. And like when we were here last year and we talked about Yuri Kulik being a gift that fell to the Sabres in their lap with that third of the 3 first-round picks they have, Kevin Adams probably feels the same way this year, that he just received a major gift being able to get Benson at 13, in my opinion.
So when I read again on Zach Benson, a name that came up, and I don't know, Bakes, if you feel like there's some similarities there, but Mitch Marner, right? Mitch Marner got drafted. He was just a little guy, skinny. He needed to, but incredible hockey sense, hockey IQ, great playmaker. Is this like too high of a ceiling when we think Mitch Marner? Is it in the realm of possibility? Where do you see the ceiling being for Benson?
Similar in that they're both major play drivers at the junior level. I mean, like I said, I think Benson on many nights was the best player on a stacked team. That's how Mitch Marner was when he played at London. He always had great line mates, but he was the kind of that engine there. I think, I see some of that doggedness. Like, I see, like, just visually, okay, you see a little bit of Jeff Skinner, too. Like, he goes 10-2. He opens his hips when he's coming through the neutral zone. He has a little bit of that to his skating game as well. Marner, obviously, visually sometimes looks a little different than Benson. But, no, skill level, I think, is comparable, Marty. No, I can see it. I can see it. Just visually, that's where I'm kind of having a hard time because they look a little different on the ice. And I think that Benson, frankly, goes harder to the dirty areas and creates more interior offense than Marner did. Marner did it with a lot of finesse. Benson has it, but he also has that blue collar, let's roll our sleeves up and get dirty and go to the net and score some greasy ones, too.
Well, you know who also could see this unfolding? It's really quite magical. It's quite something. It's become quite unique to Sabres Live. Last year, while joining us on the Sabres Live Overtime podcast, Daniel Armbruster, lead singer of Joywave, Rochesterian, diehard Sabres fan, subscriber to The Athletic. He picked Matthew Savoie as the guy he wanted Buffalo to take. Daniel joined us earlier today, and this was the first name out of his mouth.
I really like Zach Benson. I don't know that he's going to be there at 13. I mean, I've seen mock drafts with him as late as like 17 and as early as 6. But that's a guy, he played with Matt Savoie this year in Winnipeg, and he looked unbelievable.
This is incredible. Daniel joined us from the studio today. So, Bakes, now the only thing I wonder now, like, What was Daniel recording today? What other visions is he having right now? What is going to be laid down on Joywave's next album that is going to be a prediction of what society has in store for it? This is absolutely amazing.
Okay, Daniel, if you're watching, okay, please look at me. Okay, look at me. Go on tour, okay? Because I like doing this, and you're about to take my job. Okay, so please, the music is wonderful. Stick with that. But if the music stops for you, which we know the music never stops, but if it does, I think you have a pretty good career ahead of you in prospect forecasting. Well done, Daniel. Well done.
Not only he's getting a cut from all the athletic subscription that are going to be sold now, because that's what he says. I'm just a guy that reads a lot about the prospect and watches clips, but
I gotta tell you though,
he did go and list about 18 guys
of
after
course.
Zach Benson, so he covered himself really well, but that was the first name, which was a shot in the dark, right? It was like a guy that probably won't be there, but let's hope he's there, and it worked out.
Well, his immediate text to me after the pick, he said, "I'm the GM."
Well, maybe he makes you don't have to worry about you, as Kevin Adams has to worry knowing that maybe Daniel is coming for him. But no, so let's look long term, short term, long term.
That's a great way to look at that. I think that is like the phrase right now that characterizes this window in time.
Short term, long term.
Yes, isn't it?
So we know that Winnipeg now is moving in the WHL. They've been sold and are not going to be in Winnipeg anymore. So Matt Savoie, like, road to the pro game next year is either in Buffalo full-time or going back to WHL. Like, you cannot play in Rochester. You're still 19 years old. Zach Benson's the same thing, either in Buffalo or going back in juniors. But we think Savoie is the year after, maybe next year, maybe in 2 years, with the Buffalo Sabres. Is Benson 2 years in junior, a year or two at Rochester, kind of like the normal progression that we've seen out of Rusek and Weisbach and potential, like we saw that with Peterka and Quinn, a year in the American League. Like, what's the short-term, long-term with Benson?
So first of all, I think Benson, just from a skill perspective, desire perspective, in a vacuum, he could skip Rochester in all likelihood if he does a tour of duty, and if he fills out his time in the WHL. I've always gotten that feel that he's kind of a quick mover through the system and is going to be NHL ready in short order. And I hate to say that, trust me, because all of a sudden you're setting these expectations, right, that the guy is going to be up and, you're not going to properly develop a player. But you have to look at who he is as a player, and he's a very strong candidate to move through the ranks pretty quickly. With that said, though, let's look at the situation, though, in Winnipeg. They're moving to Wenatchee, and this is an organization that, going back, they're going to be a strong team again next year if Savoie goes back, especially, right? But this is an organization that also has loaded up in the past 2 years. They don't have any draft picks. They might have to sell guys off. And if Benson goes back, say Savoie doesn't play in the WHL, if he's up in Buffalo, Savoie's a candidate to be traded out of that franchise to go and be like a hired mercenary on a team that's going for it. Benson's going to be in the same boat. So I'm not necessarily
like
convinced.
A team like Seattle that went on to win the WHL this year.
Exactly. So, you go from buyer to seller real fast in junior. And if you look at the draft picks that franchise has, I think they don't have a draft pick probably until I think they have a 4th rounder and a 6th rounder in the next draft. They're done. They're cleaned out. So, but back to Benson though, it's going to be really interesting to see this because again, I don't think he's going to be a guy that you need to slow cook. Just his nature, if he can just get a little stronger here over the next, 16, 18 months, he's going to be positioned really well to make a dent pretty quickly at the NHL level. But at the same time then, you got to look at all the other bodies around him. He's got people in front of him that he has to bypass to get to the NHL also, and the Sabres are loaded at wing right now.
Yep.
That'll be a discussion in not only mere moments, but now for months and maybe years to come. Zach Benson, the Buffalo selection at 13. Let's hear from him.
They obviously seemed interested. Talking to a lot of teams, it's so hard to tell. And, right now I'm super stoked to be a Buffalo Sabre.
What's the day like waiting for the draft to start, just the uncertainty, not knowing where you're going to end up?
Yeah, it's obviously super exciting. You dream of this moment. but it's also nerve-wracking. So I'd say for most of the day I was pretty nervous, but it was kind of mixed with the excitement.
What are you just feeling right now? You have the jersey on, you're Sabre now. What does it feel like?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. Wearing an NHL jersey, it's pretty amazing. So I'm super thrilled right now.
Zach, do you think this will give you any extra motivation going into this next year's WHL season?
Work ethic's one of my strong suits, and I take a lot of pride in it. So I'm looking forward to this next year, and my goal is just to keep improving.
What was the dynamic like between you and Matt last season? Working together, trying to make each other better, every day practice, games.
Yeah, me and Sav played the whole year together on the same line, killed together, played on the power play together. So now to be sharing the same NHL jersey, it's pretty amazing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Zach, how's your time in the Western Hockey League helped you develop?
It's been huge. Obviously, learning from a guy like James Patrick every day, it's pretty awesome, and you learn a lot of stuff from a guy that's played 20 years in the NHL. So WHL has helped me get to this point, and I can't thank them enough.
What do you think about all this going on with the franchise, coaching,
Yeah, actually, I met with our new GM today, this morning, and super good guy. I also met with our associate coach. Great organization. They had nothing but good things to say about it, and I'm looking forward to it. It's obviously, it's a pretty big loss. A guy that's taught me since I was 15 years old in the bubble, and he means a lot to me, and he's a great coach. So it's obviously not gonna be ideal, but I'm sure the next coach we're gonna have is gonna be real good too.
From what you know about the Sabres, what do you think makes you fit with the theme of this organization, like the kind of player they want and so forth?
Yeah, I think they want a speedy team that plays with a lot of skill and work ethic, competitiveness. So for me, I just want to keep competing, keep getting better, and with their roster right now, they're looking pretty good. So I couldn't be more excited.
I read that you mentioned playing with Benson 13th when you practice. What did you learn?
I learned a lot from Peyton. Obviously, I was 15, so my first taste in the Western League, and he taught me so many things, and whether it was saying it to me or just showing me on the ice and off the ice. Super good leader, and I think I said it before, he's probably the best leader I've ever played for.
Don Granato obviously gave you a winning culture there. How excited are you to eventually be a part of that formula?
I'm pretty pumped. Like I said, their roster's looking pretty dangerous, so it's kind of be part of that plan, and where they're heading, I'm super pumped.
You mentioned work ethic is one of the traits that maybe helped you stand out. Where did that start? Where did it come from?
Yeah, to be honest, my dad and grandpa, kind of my whole family, own a pretty stressful business, and to see the work they put in every day, it's it's pretty amazing, and I'd probably say that's where I kind of get it from. I don't know the exact number, but I've watched a few games. Obviously, getting to watch Peyton, it's always fun when you can turn on the TV and watch a former teammate. Obviously they're an exciting team to watch with all their young talent. So, they play a fast game, high pace, and they're competitive every night, and they don't really take a night off.
You played in the Western League at 15, and James Patrick was telling me that he didn't expect you to really do much that season, and then you ended up being a regular. Just what happened that season, and what did it do for your career, I guess?
It was huge. Obviously, getting to play as a 15-year-old, not many people get to do that, and getting another year to learn from Jeep, and then obviously I wouldn't have got to play with Peyton, so getting to learn from him is super impactful in my career, and I couldn't be more thankful.
Did you not surprise yourself, but were you surprised that it happened to you that quickly when you were in the bubble?
I'm always confident in my game, and I was confident going into the bubble. So I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I wasn't even supposed to be able to play the 24 games, so I would say that's more kind of the shocking news.
Who did you have with you here this week, and what was this week like?
Yeah, I had a lot of family. I had a few friends, so it was a pretty chaotic week. I had some meetings, media, and then I got to hang out with my brothers and friends and cousins. So pretty surreal week, and it's a dream come true.
Certainly, you talked to the Sabres combine.
I didn't talk to the Sabres this week, but we had a really good conversation in Buffalo.
So when they're on the clock, what's the thought in your head? And you kind of waiting to see, especially since you had the feeling that they were interested.
Yeah, I mean, that can go for every team. You're hoping they call your name, and when Buffalo got up there and called my name, it was a surreal moment. And to be honest, I kind of just blacked out.
What's the part of your game that you think gives you the biggest edge?
Sorry, what was that?
What part of your game do you think gives you the biggest edge on the ice?
Yeah, I think my skill set mixed with my competitiveness. I think I compete every shift, and I don't really take a shift off. And with my skill set, I think that goes a long way. And I think just my smarts, getting to places and knowing where to be. Yeah, I think I take a lot of pride in kind of going to the dirty areas and scoring goals from kind of wherever. And I think that's kind of the best playoff players, guys that can score in different areas. And so I take a lot of pride in it. I try and go to the right areas when I can.
What's the name of your family's business?
It's West Coast Amusements.
Thank you. Cowboy hat. Did you pick it out this week? What made you decide that one?
Yeah, actually, the Western League, the media guy came up to me, Corey, and he asked if I was wanting to do that, and so we went over to the cowboy hat shop and picked a pretty cool one out. And I guess I got to say thank you to the Western League for the new hat.
What's the story of the jacket?
The jacket. Honestly, it was pretty last minute. I went to the suit shop, and he was able to get the liner done inside, and I was pretty pumped about that.
Do you remember what Matt Savoie wore to his draft?
Was it the tiger or lion? Yeah, that was pretty cool. I was contemplating what to do, and that was definitely up there. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Sounds good.
It's amazing, you put the Sabres ball cap on, and I feel like he grew up 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the moment when he's drafted, I'm looking at him like we often do. After all this time, seeing prospects make their way into the NHL, and he's so young. But then he puts the cap on, and there's this instant next step up, and immediately, or thereabouts, there was a recognition of the person who has helped him as a coach along the way in James Patrick, and knowing that he won't have James now that the franchise is relocating further west. Take us through what the former Sabre had to say about Zach.
Well, first of all, Zach said with emotions, right? Like, he was a little bit emotional talking about how, unfortunately, like, he won't have James help him continue in his progression. But so I reached out to Jeep, good buddy of mine, and I played with him, and he's just fantastic. And we saw him last year in Montreal, and he helped us. Talked about Matt Savoie, and he says the guy, he's elite hockey sense, stick agility, elite work ethic, and passion. He just loves the game and loves to play and compete. That is exactly what the Buffalo Sabres have been looking for, right? A guy that has extreme hockey sense, that plays hard and wants to compete and wants to get better. I think that was the Sabres were looking for somebody like that. It fell so on their lap to be able to get a guy like Zach Benson. They couldn't pass that opportunity. We know Kevin Adams has talked about maybe moving up in the draft, probably because a guy like Benson was a guy that they were targeting. But then after Mitchkov drops and other players are dropping, you're seeing, well, this guy's coming to us. Kind of like Yuri Kulik last year. We don't have to move. This guy's coming to us. So, Bakes, when I tell you that he loves the game, that he is extreme hockey IQ and compete, does that make you feel like, yes, this is the guy that the Sabres wanted and targeted and, fits exactly the mold?
We've talked about it leading up to the draft, right? Was what's a Buffalo Sabre? And Kevin Adams talks about compete. He talks about hockey IQ every time that question comes up. And I'm not trying to be so like overly effusive here, but that's what Zach Benson is as a hockey player. And you see it. It's nonstop, 60 minutes a night with this kid. So, yes, Marty, I mean, he fits it to a T. And, like, when you saw Simashev go and when you saw Daniil Butt go, you knew that they were going to get a player like this potentially coming to them, and it lined up very well for what the Sabres, I think, coming into tonight wanting to get accomplished.
Can you maybe, for those who are just joining us, Bakes, maybe recap what has been the journey for Benson already? Because you referenced it in the fact that this has been going on a while, and then he, of course, was asked about it with the COVID year and coming up at such a young age into a very, very hard, and it's not unlike another player he referenced in Peyton Krebs, and what we've also seen, you know, for a number of other guys who that strange window of opportunity that presented itself more often than it typically would because of COVID, and he was almost a point a game as a dramatic underage player in this league.
No, he was. He's been dynamite since entering the league. I mean, as soon as he's come in, he's been just made an impression right away. What was, I thought, really interesting for Benson was actually, if you fast forward to this year, Duffer, was he went through the season. He was having an incredible season. March comes along, and he gets hurt leading into the playoffs. He missed about a month right at the end of the season, missed the first round, then came back, and he was actually just jumped right back in and made that team better from the very first shift he took the ice. I can't wait to get home, Duffer, and just kind of carve up some video and kind of bring that out to the fans, because there's, you know, when we were watching his interview, I was kind of just going back through thinking about his season, and there's plays that stand out to me that I can't wait to go and pull out. You know, watching this kid drive right down the gut of the ice and with power and soft hands, and some of them are probably going to be on the screen right now, the clips that I'm talking about. But no, I mean, Duffer, since day one, you know, he's come in. He's had a lot of pressure on him because he's always been a highly touted prospect, and he's lived up to it every time he's taken the ice.
Now, one thing that was interesting to me is he said, I've seen the Sabres play a few times this year because I watched Peyton, right? And that connectivity from players and understanding the organization, the way they play, the desire to be part of a team, to me is always something that comes up in the meetings. He did also say, I didn't meet with the Sabres this week. I had a great meeting with them in Buffalo at the Combine. But, again, it just to show to me that, look, the Sabres have their list, and then all of a sudden, a guy that's probably high on their list that they talk to, you got to talk to a lot of players, although they didn't talk to Connor Bedard. There was no reasons to. But, anyway, and now it falls. I mean, again, are you surprised of the way that the draft went? From the first 12 picks and then finally getting to the Sabres at 13?
Yeah, I thought that domino, that first one fell maybe a pick or two earlier than we thought. I mean, I didn't see, first of all, Benson lasting to 13. Now you could say, well, you had him at 12 in your mock draft. Yeah, well, I was uncomfortable with him going 12 in the mock draft. As soon as you saw Arizona make that pick of the big defenseman out of Russia at 6, and then they followed up at 12 with the big Russian forward, it became very real that Benson was an undeniable, like, no-brainer pick for the Sabres. So when you say it fell into their lap, absolutely. But I was a little surprised at the Arizona picks that really, to me, were the moves that made Benson to Buffalo possible. But again, you know, we'll know in 5 years if Arizona made the right picks, right, Duffer? I mean, we'll know in about maybe even sooner.
I struggle with putting a timeline on Arizona. Am I the only one?
I struggle on putting a timeline on Arizona. That's number one, although the Sabres last year had the 3 picks, right? So there's a different approach to the first round and preparation when you have 3 picks as opposed to only 1.
And Bakes, the one name that I think was among the many, because certainly Matthew Wood and certainly Braden Yeager were talked about a fair amount, but I know you felt this morning, and I feel like in the days leading up to this, it was Oliver Moore if he's there, Oliver Moore if he's there.
Yep.
But now it's like Oliver Moore if he's there, unless Zach Benson's still there. And then Oliver Moore ended up falling, and he ends up down at 19, and he's arguably the fastest skater in this draft. So I just think it continues to highlight the great it's just so ironic, maybe a little ironic to me here, where we talk so much about speed and skating, right? And it's already been clearly established that is not the best aspect of Benson's game. And yet in this world we're living in, it's like, well, that doesn't matter because Benson can do this, this, and this.
Sometimes you're just a hockey player. You don't have to be a track star. We all fall in love with the aesthetics of an Oliver Moore. The Oliver Moore thought that maybe guys like you and I had was on the assumption that Zach Benson, as a pure, raw hockey player, wasn't going to be there for Buffalo at 13. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. So, no, very, very surprising development, I think, for Sabres fans. And I'm telling you right now, I mean, don't judge him by his size. Judge him by what he does when you see him for the first time. Sabres fans are really going to love this player. The hockey sense, too. When we talk about hockey sense with him, if we can just talk about that for a second, like he's been getting some really nice passes from Matt Savoie, especially this year. What he does around the net, kind of back up into space, finds himself space to get a pass right on his stick. He's in the right spot, and it's the timing that he has. He gets to the spot at the right time. There's clips that are coming to my mind that I can't wait to go home and pull to show some of these things that I'm talking about here. It's going to be little plays when he doesn't have the puck that make him such an exceptional thinker of the game. It's going to be really fun to put that together, and I look forward to it. It might take me until the weekend, okay, but we're going to get there, and we're going to put that package together.
Now, two things, Bakes. We are at pick 20 right now, and Seattle is going to make the pick. We haven't seen a trade yet. And there's been a lot of talk about, I want to move up, I want to move down, like a lot of teams. That's not happened. It's hard to trade at the draft when there's a domino that falls and all of a sudden you fall in love with the players that you're seeing. So that's one. But two, I feel like the Philadelphia Flyers picked Matvei Michkov because they didn't want Washington to pick him at 8 right behind them. And I'm not saying the Sabres' approach to this was similar, but the Sabres have Zach Benson available to them. And they know that Pittsburgh is picking behind them. And what's a player that Pittsburgh would love to have? A guy that would fall to them in the draft, right?
Yeah.
A guy that has extreme hockey sense, that competes, that, so not saying the Sabres said, we're taking Benson before Pittsburgh can get him, but there's these games inside the games, and that's why it's so hard to mock draft anything because of the preference of teams. So are you excited, surprised, or were you tickled a little bit when Philly went ahead and picked Michkov before Washington, and the same thing for Benson before Pittsburgh maybe were able to get him?
I love that dynamic of Philly taking Michkov. Pretty much they're saying there's no way that we're going to hand that on a silver platter. The talent level that Matvei Michkov has. I mean, again, coming into this draft year, if you go back the past couple of years, really, this was a draft that a lot of people like myself were looking forward to, 2023. Bedard, Fantilli was always lingering around, but he was always thought to be the third guy after Michkov and Bedard. So for Michkov to start sliding, and if you look at Philly, it was great to see what Philly's doing here because they're committed to a longer term. They're not going to fix it right away. Daniel Briere's got a lot of runway to put this together. It made a lot of sense for him to take it, but it was a little bit of a dagger, too, to kind of put that right in to the Capitals franchise by taking a player that I think everyone in the world knows that they likely would have taken in Michkov if he was there. To pair him potentially with Ovechkin in the November of his hockey career. So, no, if you look at what the Sabres did, though, I think, clearly it was a player they wanted regardless of who was behind him. They don't want Pittsburgh to get a player like that, but at the same time, in this draft, regardless of who Buffalo took at 13, Pittsburgh was getting a pretty good one regardless of what Buffalo did there.
Well, the good news for the three of us tonight is we all established a podium position when it came to fashion. That might be because of the sheer number or lack thereof on the set. But, Bakes, you are someone who is keenly interested in fashion, so we'd love your take on the latest pick by the Buffalo Sabres in Zach Benson.
Yeah, I'm into the baby blue. Okay, I like the look. I think this is kind of the inside of the jacket's pretty good. It's not no tiger print or anything like that, but for a Western Canadian kid, I like the vibe, even if it was unintentional. The hat, not a bad bucket. I think maybe a little bit more of like a, I like how he matched light on light, but no, it's a pretty good look for him. I can't pull that off. He certainly can. I think we'll leave it at that. I need to see the shoes though, Duffer. Are we cowboy boots or what? I need to see the shoes here.
Probably boots. I got to think.
I don't know. It was warm today, and I'll tell you this. I walked around the building here at Bridgestone Arena about a couple of times trying to find a media entrance, and I could see the fans and the amount of fans that were outside by the red carpet.
Mm-hmm.
And then these prospects would come in, and the fact that he had that confidence, right?
Yeah.
To take pictures and to show up on the red carpet with the cowboy hat, the great look, and probably do like his strutting himself on in front of the fans. Like, I love it. Some guys are totally uncomfortable. Owen Power at the red carpet for the NHL awards. Like, the guy, if he could have sprinted 100 yards, he would have done it.
That's because Owen didn't have the benefit of the draft. Because
yeah,
it
because
wasn't
he was
normal.
home. Well,
Yeah.
no, not only that, but Owen is
Yes,
the guy
I
that,
know.
like, he doesn't
I
love
know.
this stuff.
I
but
know.
The confidence of a Zach Benson to go out and say, hey, look at me. I'm going to open my jacket. Look, I'm doing my jacket
Look
too.
at you,
I got the
Napoli's.
Sabres, Napoli inner lining here. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, I love that confidence that he was able to do it in front of thousands of fans that
Yeah.
were standing outside of Bridgestone Arena taking pictures.
And Bakes, you're not a tie guy tonight, but not to be overlooked in that setup for Benson was the length of the tie. It was perfect. It's absolutely where it needs to be. So thank you, Zach, for that.
Yeah, he didn't go boomer politician with the tie, that's for sure. No, I'll tell you what, though. If you look at the player, though, so like we've talked so much about the work ethic and the skill level and the on-ice stuff, you saw him in the interview, right? And you start to think about the personality. And tell me, like, this kid, your first impression of him here, just in the interview that he just did with the media, the assembled media in Nashville, he's going to fit like a glove in that room with all these guys. I think that he's got that demeanor. I mean, it helps having a Savoie. Savoie's a little bit of a different, more straight-ahead personality, very businesslike. Benson's got a little more moxie to his personality. He's going to fit right in with a lot of these young guys. And I think from a personality perspective, too, and the culture of the team and what they're building here, let's not forget how important that is and how I think that was part of the evaluation and the interview work that they did with him leading up to the pick at 13.
Well, it's funny you say it that way because I think that speaks to why he probably gravitated towards talking about Krebs an awful lot. And obviously, as we see a compilation of his work to date as an 18-year-old, barely 18-year-old. He did have a gold medal win for Canada at the Halinka, and obviously a tremendously successful individual and team season with Winnipeg this year. They came up short to ultimately Western League champions Seattle in the league final. And the one thing that, and it's certainly not a Western League thing, it just happens to be that when you go back to last year, and Matt Lindgren was a kid that they drafted out of the Western League. And there's such an enthusiasm, right, to make a good first impression and to share that you're willing to do whatever it takes. And we heard Don Granato, talk about Matt Lindgren this offseason. And, like, when Granato said he first met him for the first time, Matt's like, I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I'm going to do everything humanly possible. And I think, Bakes, when you look at that moment tonight, it's really cool when you just get drafted, you've been through the interview process, but you get to meet potentially the head coach, that you're going to be seeing for the first time. Not that he didn't meet him in meetings before, but you know what I mean, Kris. Like, these are cool moments, cool takeaway moments from draft night.
Oh, I'm trying to lip read here. You can see him shaking hands with Granato there. He's probably saying, where's my plane ticket? I want to get to Buffalo right now. I want to get on the ice. When's development camp start? Let's go. I mean, this kid, it's well established, right? It's already been spoken about. This kid loves the game. He probably wishes he was out there firing pucks, getting better, working on a skill game right now. But no, this kid's going to make an impression immediately in camp when he gets here. Now, again, we were talking a little bit, maybe 10, 15 minutes ago about he's not going to need a lot of runway. He's not. But I'm not also saying that he's going to come in and make the team out of camp this year. That's not what we're saying. I'm just saying that the kid has all the attributes to get to the NHL pretty quickly. I'm not saying it's not this fall. However, he can come in. It's the camp battle. We talked about this when I was on with you guys in April. Okay, we did a podcast. We said, oh man, training camp's going to be fun. It just got that much more fun adding this kid to the mix, this kid's motor and his desire to come in and make an impression. I can't wait for that wrinkle now that he's in play for Buffalo.
Okay, Sabres' first pick, for those that are just joining us, was 13th overall. Zach Benson from the Winnipeg Ice in the WHL. The 5'10", 160-pound player. He scored 36 goals this year and 98 points in 60 games. He was the second highest scoring player in the WHL, draft eligible.
Mm-hmm.
The guy ahead of him, Connor Bedard. Like, obviously,
Who?
Connor Bedard.
Oh.
Like, what did I
I
say?
can't. No, I reeled you in. I can't believe you fell.
Yeah. The guy that got picked first overall by the Chicago Blackhawks. So in any other year, Zach Benson could have possibly been the highest scoring prospect out of the WHL if it wasn't for Connor Bedard. 98 points in 60 games. That's pretty impressive. Now, Bakes, obviously 5'10", 160 pounds. We're going to talk about that, his size. But we had Mike Kelly of Sports Logic and the NHL Network yesterday on Sabres Live. And it was yesterday, right? Yes. The days all blend in. And I asked him, okay, what's the number one thing people say of guys from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League? He goes, a lot of offense, right? What about the Ontario League? I don't know really. What about the Western League? Big, strong defensemen, right? So Zach Benson has had to play against big, strong defensemen. Is that a part of his game that will surprise people? Because he can find his way to pucks, he can beat big, strong defensemen, and can handle himself with his size.
Yeah, he's got a gritty mindset. He's got a gritty style to his game. I mean, he meets that challenge head on. He likes to go right at the defenseman. And it's that mentality that actually backs guys off. Sometimes you see players that have sheer speed. Like, you want to go back and talk about Oliver Moore. Oliver Moore is disruptive with the speed. He backs guys off that way. Benson backs defensemen off because he keeps coming at him all game. By the beginning of the third period, he wears him down. It's a gritty mindset. It's an attitude. It's a mentality, and that's what he brings. And that's what I like about drafting players out of the Western League, because you have to, if you're a smaller guy, you naturally have to develop a chip on your shoulder, because if you don't have it, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to keep getting knocked down. Zach Benson's a guy who doesn't get knocked down very much. He just kind of keeps going and going all game, 60 minutes.
Hartnell down, Reinhardt down,
yeah.
Not Benson
Not
down.
Benson down. No, and it really is. I mean, it's quite something to be talking this way about these. I'm actually quite thankful that we're finally not obsessed with the height the way this game was for so long. And, you know, there is clearly runway for these incredibly skilled players.
Size of the heart goes a long way.
And that's what was always kind of frustrating for me sitting here, you know, at events like this. But then, you know, as the journey begins for so many, and you almost felt like it was just being held back for no good reason, other than what the tail of the tape was saying. And yes, there were always examples. One of the earliest for, you know, my viewing of the 80s was Theoren Fleury, right?
Yeah.
Like, or the early 80s and early 90s, right? Like, if that didn't prove it, Marty St. Louis obviously did right after.
I mean, we were just talking about, like, the Flyers passed on Cole Caulfield in 2019.
Yes.
They selected Cam York. Now,
Yeah.
Cam York may be a nice player, but Cole Caulfield, you predicted, Duffer, will get to 50 possibly next year.
I think he's, yeah.
So I look at it and I'm saying, Kevin Adams, even when he did his press availability yesterday, somebody asked him about size. And he said, look, if we have a player and he has the compete, the hockey sense, everything that we want, and he's 6'3" and 205 pounds, yeah, we'll love that. But that's not the first thing on our list. Right, and then, so, yeah, absolutely. I think the Sabres are big right now. They have Alex Tuck. They have Tage Thompson, right? They have Dylan Cousins. They have Matthias Samuelsson, Darlene Power. They got size throughout the lineup that they can use, and it obviously protects and puts player with, you know, smaller size but big compete in a better place.
Bakes, tomorrow, unless, you know, the Sabres do something else tonight, that we're looking at 39 and 45 right out of the chute in round 2, and then 86th, 109th, 141, 173 at 205. Knowing what we now know as far as what this hockey group has done with its first round picks in now the fourth draft under Kevin Adams, what do you think tomorrow might hold? Any wild cards that are already rattling around in your mind, or any philosophy, perhaps more importantly, that you're thinking of approaching tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him get a defenseman with one of those second-round picks. Just get, like we did a show leading up to the draft. I had a couple targets in mind for the second round. If they can get one of those targets, like a Maxime Sturbach, if he's still there at 39, I think it'd be a very astute pick. He kind of fits the profile, by the way, even though he played in the USHL this year. He is of European descent, and that's where the Jerry Fortin, Kevin Adams regime has gone with their second rounders. If you look at maybe 109, that's maybe where I would think a goaltender might come into play to kind of build up some depth at that position. I know you have Devin Levi, and you spent a second rounder on Topias Lainanen, but it wouldn't hurt to start maybe adding another one to the mix there, maybe in that fourth or fifth round. But no, I'm really looking at maybe another forward and a defenseman in the second round with those picks. Keep adding the compete. Stay on that train. Get those high compete. Obviously they can all skate nowadays, but I want those smart players, those guys that can fill roles, that are interchangeable. You can move them up and down the lineup. Some of those names that I mentioned in our second episode of the draft show would be logical targets, as long as they don't get picked tonight, of course.
Yeah. Kris Baker of Sabres Prospects, fantastic job as always. And here we are, 28 draft picks in to the Kevin Adams era. 9 of those 28 have come from the Canadian Hockey League.
Yep.
Zach Benson is the latest, and he is the Sabres' 13th overall pick tonight at the 2023 draft in Nashville. We rewound the clock earlier today, Marty. We talked of 20 years ago and Thomas Vanek being taken 5th overall in the first round by Buffalo at the draft here in Nashville. It does seem like they are stockpiling offensive talent after offensive talent. And yeah, it'll be a numbers crunch, but man, is it going to be fun to watch. And our first evaluation / orientation for these young players happens with development camp starting on Sunday.
Yeah, development camp is going to be great. They're obviously going to be on the ice. They're going to have the 3-on-3 tournament that a lot of fans go to, and it's definitely a lot of fun to go to. But again, just quickly, Kevin Adams always stresses we want talented players, we want great people, and there are an asset. They want to make the Sabres a better team, but at some point, also those players could be an asset. And I'm not trading Zach Benson right now, and I'm not trading anybody. But the more great players you have, the more assets you have, and this is a big summer, a big year for the Buffalo Sabres to get in the playoffs and to keep pushing towards the Stanley Cup. And I really feel Kevin Adams and his staff are ready for that step.
Bakes, one line on Dev Camp coming up.
Oh, I'm excited to see Benson, obviously. I mean, I like all these new toys. But, no, look, we talked about, I know you said one line. Listen, I've been looking forward to training camp and the battles. I'm looking forward to seeing these guys come together and form their friendships in development camp. That's what I'm excited about.
Fantastic. It's our Sabres Live at the NHL Draft, presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos. It's been quite a day, and it promises to be just that again tomorrow. We'll have continuing coverage from the draft in our traditional form of WGR Sports Radio 550 and MSG starting at noon on Thursday. It'll be a 2-hour show, and we'll be well into day 2 of the draft by the time we hit the air. Thanks for being with us tonight on Facebook and Twitter. For Marty and Bakes and our entire crew, I'm Brian Duff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.